myself again. But it's the only way you're ever gonna learn. You look back and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on that.
Morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and big welcome to Mick Lowe's. How are you, Mick?
I'm good, Steve. You?
Very good, mate. Very good. We're still unbeaten, so still smiling.
Well, honestly, I mean, the number of thoughts that are rolling around my head, I think I might just have to, at this minute in time, just say in all seriousness, with my aphasia problems, you might just allow me one or two words this morning, because honestly, there's just so much going on in my head. I'm so fascinating. I'm so excited. I'm a little bit angry. I'm a little bit happy. I feel like my entire thought process in terms of Newcastle United and the 30 years I had almost feel encapsulated. I kept thinking to myself, we talked about this last Saturday when I said that on the 7th of March, 1992, Newcastle played Brighton in the same way as that they played them last Saturday. And back in 1992 with KK, we lost 1-0 to Brighton and Hove Albion on the 7th of March, 92. We ended up having to go to Leicester, last game of the season, of course, you remember, almost going into the third tier for the first time in Newcastle United's history. And yet exactly 30 years later, we beat Brighton and Hove Albion. We've now backed it up with a win against Southampton. It looks to me that, like, Premier League is safe. And now, all of a sudden, there is so much excitement. There is so much anticipation. And it's almost as if the whole world has moved 30 years from where it was in 1992 with Kevin Keegan and desperately trying to stay out of the third tier. Now, 30 years on, we look like we're in the certainly potentially, the world is our oyster. I mean, it's absolutely amazing how football can do that with you, and things can move on in such a way, year by year by year by year, and what comes around goes around.
Mick, you know the biggest problem is going to be keeping our feet on the ground.
100%, and that's why I'm saying, with my aphasia, there's every chance I can get words mixed in all over in all over different routes this morning, because, as you say, you just don't know what to think. You don't know what to do. You don't know what to hope. You don't know what to expect. There's just so many thoughts going on in your head. It's such an exciting time. It really is such an exciting time. But then you think to yourself, you know, a month ago, Chelsea were probably thinking, oh, everything was fine at Stamford Bridge. And all of a sudden, something like that changes. So you just don't know what's going on. You just don't know what's around the corner in the world, Steve. It's an amazing thing, football. But then, in terms of beyond football, there's terrible things happening elsewhere in the world as well. So it is a strange old business.
Over the last few weeks, we've been fending questions on this channel and on all shows, I would have to say, about when is Eddie Howe going to start Bruno. Well, that opportunity came along against Southampton. Joe Linton picking up a slight tweak of his groin, which ruled him out. And he has been one of the best performers. We've covered that on the show in depth. Yeah. But Bruno came in and certainly made an impression with the supporters.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, though, Steve, because I think we have to put priorities right, and we have to say first things first, is that congratulations, 100% congratulations to Eddie Howe himself, regardless of the 11 he picked against Southampton and the fact that he started a game against Southampton, the fact that he is manager of the month, and absolutely 100%. We'll come on to this because there's things I want to talk about Eddie Howe, but first and foremost, absolutely 100% young man. Very, very well done. Congratulations. Saw in the pictures yesterday of him with his staff. He's a very meek and mild, very, very down and grounded fella. And he's done a fantastic job. After a difficult start, there will be difficult times to come. There's no doubt about it. But first and foremost, congratulations to Eddie Howe. As for picking Bruno, I think I said about it maybe 2-3 weeks ago when I just got that suggestion. I remember saying to you, He mentioned in a press conference about 2 or 3 weeks ago that during that run of games where there was going to be a lot of and a very heavy congestion, there was every chance that he might have to freshen it up. Now, whether it was down to the fact that Joe Linton got an injury on Thursday night, or whether he would have started Bruno either way, we don't know. But Joe Linton obviously was allowed to make way, and Bruno started. In terms of debuts, in terms of goals, it's not really a debut. It's a full debut. People talking about, is it the best goal you've ever seen? I mean, it was an absolute worldie. I mean, it was a peach of a goal. And that alone will give you encouragement as to what's going to happen. And I'll remember as well, going back to that initial conversation that Eddie Howe had about the fact that during the congestion of, well, at one point it was going to be 5 in 15. I think it's now 4 in 13 games, whatever it is. He also made a very interesting point about a couple of weeks ago when he said, yes, Bruno will get his chance. And he actually said, and he may just stay in there. They obviously know he's that good. They know that at this minute, because he's loyal to his team, he doesn't want to sort of rattle any cages. So he's kept him out of the limelight. But they knew because he's such a good player, that once he was set, once he was up and running, then it's going to be very difficult to keep him in the game, keep him in the side. So let's wait and see whether he keeps in the side, keeps in the side for the remainder of the season. Remains to be seen. But the goal itself was worthy of any debut goal you'll ever see.
Yeah, I mean, you know, his all-round performances in the cameo roles he's had, I've thoroughly enjoyed watching him. He's a next stage player. I think that's the way I've described him. But that was a sublime goal. It was meant. He clearly knows that he's loved by the Newcastle fans. I think that's going to be a hell of a journey with him. But you're right, Eddie Howe, congratulations. A wonderful achievement, you know, to galvanise a squad which, you know, was at rock bottom when he came in. And I think the other thing that Steve Hasty and Neil Mitchell pulled out of the all last night was that, you know, there was no immediate bounce, Mick. You know, sometimes managers come in and there's that bounce and you win 3 or 4 games and then it, you know, levels off. With Eddie Howe, it's been almost more, you know, there wasn't a bounce. He was in trouble. We talked about it. And then it just seems to have all taken its time and he's got there in the end, hasn't he? And I think it's made it all the more special that it's happened in that particular way.
Yeah, I mean, if you remembered how much criticism I got from certain quarters because I suggested that I was worried that we hadn't had the bounce that Steven Gerrard had with 4 wins in his first 10 games at Villa, that Dean Smith had the bounce with 4 wins at Norwich, and they were beginning to climb and we weren't going anywhere. And Eddie Howe was only 1 win in his opening 10 games. And we talked about the results-driven business, etc., etc. And I actually said last week, you know, I remember back in the time, if with 1 win in 10, had he gone another 6 or 7, then suddenly, before you know it, criticism would have come, because that's what happens in football. It's a results-driven business. Yes, he might have been steady Eddie away. Yes, he might have been doing this, that, and the other, but it doesn't matter, Steve. It doesn't matter. It's about results. There are three words for me in football, and this sums up Eddie Howe and why he's manager of the month. Because if you're a manager in 21st century football, you need one of 3 things. You need results, because everybody knows it's been a results-driven business. But you also need 2 other things in the 21st century. You need money, and you need plenty of money. Back in the day, the Shankleys, the Revies, all right, they had some better players, but they didn't have lots and lots of money. The other thing you need in the 21st century these days that nobody had once upon a time, and social media is a big part of this, etc., is you need charm and you need a bit of luck. You need charm from yourself, but you need charm from your supporters, and you need a bit of luck from yourself and a bit of luck from your supporters. So results, charm, and money. Eddie Howe has all 3 of those. And because he has all 3 of those, he is manager of the month, right? So you look at Jurgen Klopp, results, charm, money. You look at Guardiola, results, charm, and money. Go through the Newcastle United managers in recent years. KK, all three. Alan Pardew, right? We can talk more about him because we can talk about the fact that nine games unknown and nine games unlost at this minute, undefeated at this minute in time by Newcastle. The last team to do that, of course, was the 11-12, 12-13 Pardew game when they ended up getting fifth in the table. Sissoko scored the goal on his debut at St James's, similar to Bruno. And Cabaye, we could talk about him. We could talk about Johan Cabaye because I think Johan Cabaye could be our next Bruno. So there's Cabaye and Sissoko in the background of Pardew. But Pardew himself, he was manager of the season and he got us fifth. He got us back in Europe. He's the last manager to do it. Yes, he had results. Yes, he had a certain amount of money. He had certain amounts of money, but he had no charm. That was the problem. He had no charm and he had no luck with supporters. They just didn't like him. Chrissy Hughton has charm. He had results in the championship. Chrissy Hughton never had money. Rafa had plenty of results now and then, but not enough. He had plenty of charm and he didn't have an awful lot of money. You have to need all three of those equations, and Eddie Howe has them at this minute in time. Steve Bruce, results, charm, and money, probably only had half of one of those three combinations. So Eddie Howe will pick, only because people will say, and obviously the Southampton manager went at a great lengths to say it, that he has got money. He's been lucky enough to get money. Yes, I could also argue as well, he's had a bit of luck. He's part of a charm offensive with new ownership who's got everybody smiling, got everybody happy. So Eddie Howe has had a little bit of luck in terms of that charm offensive and also £96 million worth of money in January. But the key issue is he's got results. And that's why you like Eddie Howe more than any of the other two. The fact that he has turned Newcastle United round. He has them 9 games unbeaten. He has somehow turned around a squad that was on its knees in 2021 and has turned it into a proper team in 2022. Fair play, Eddie Howe.
Big Sell, morning. He's watching in Australia. He says, what a run we are on. Steve says, how's your mum? Hope she's well. She's on the mend. The miracle woman is very, very good today. She is doing really well. She's on the ward now. She's got no oxygen in. So she is going to come home once she is fully rehabilitated as far as walking and that's concerned. But thanks for your concern, Steve. John from qtechshop.co.uk asks a question, Mick. He says, are you genuinely shocked at the form? Anyone predicting we would be 10 points clear of relegation would have already been locked up by the men in the white coats.
I'll sort of gone to a degree. I'll repeat of what I've just said. He's been fortunate to a degree, Eddie Howe, in so much as 96 million and proper players. We'll go back to our old adage about he didn't necessarily need perfect players. What he needed was proper players. Now he and Amanda Staveley and Mehad Gadusi and whoever else, Steve Nixon, whoever else has worked behind the scenes, they've worked bloody hard to get not just 96 million, but to get Dan Burn into a player who's turned into almost a revolution of a centre-back. A very fine left-back. They've managed to nick Target and get him in on a loan. Trippier obviously has been and gone, but obviously is going to be a big, big player. You know, Chris Wood's now got his goal. Bruno's now got his goal. You know, they've got decent players in there, but I would certainly say that is a factor. That is a factor, but it has to be more than that. It has to be more than how studious Eddie Howe is. And what I like about Eddie Howe as well is he never gets too high and he never gets too low. You get some managers who just start screaming and bawling about we're doing this and we're doing that. And then the other side will get morose and they'll get dull and they'll get themselves into a right pickle and a right state. He just stays steady. He's steady Eddie. I've talked about the no changing man. He just stays it, leaves it as it is. He's loyal to his players. He's quite happy where he is. So yes, there was an advantage gained to Newcastle by the amount of money that was bought and players that were bought in January, but it's still been more than that. There is also a slight argument as well, Steve, that could say, I mean, Southampton were just about the first top 10 team, we've beaten and played. Yes, West Ham were in there. Villa are now, strictly speaking, a top 10 side. But the majority of teams we've played over these 9 games unbeaten, obviously go back to Manchester United, was a draw as well. So we have been a little bit fortunate with the quality of players. But that's where you deserve your luck. This is where, all the VARs that were going the wrong way have gone the right way. Some of the results that were a little bit unadvantageous, now suddenly things are going in our luck and our fortune. So, yeah, I think you could see why one or two people might be slightly quizzical, but I don't think you can. I don't think you can genuinely be. I think you just have to say that the fella has done an absolutely amazing job. But there's more work to do. There's more work to do. I can't help thinking, again, this is something we could talk about for the next hour. I could sit here, honestly, I could sit here and talk for about 3 hours with all these things that are going in my head. So I've also going in my head about Manchester City, and Mark Hughes is doing a fantastic job for 08-09, and then all of a sudden Roberto Mancini arrives. We don't know what the thought process is in terms of, is there going to be a new manager somewhere down the line? Is Eddie Howe in it lock, stock and barrel for the next 3 or 4 years? We just don't know. Are these players who are doing so well at the moment, are they going to be surplus to requirements in the summer? A lot of them, because again, we might up the ante and might end up finishing 5th or 6th, then get into Europe. We just don't know. There's so many fascinating questions to be asked and so many issues to talk about.
It says, lads, Chelsea was likely to be difficult in light of recent events. Is it a bit easier now, says John Askew? Obviously, interesting times at Chelsea. You touched on it already with the war in the Ukraine. From our perspective, we play Chelsea tomorrow, and they've got all kinds of sanctions being levelled against their owner. I mean, Thomas Tuchel has come out, he's spoken, but we're looking at it and going, how is it going to affect it? He's trying to keep upbeat, but it must be very difficult when all kinds of things could happen. Steve Hasty mentioned it last night that, what about the insurance of players? If you can't spend
players' wages,
it's does it give us a bit more of a chance tomorrow, do you think?
I don't know. The answer to that is the only people who know are Chelsea Football Club, and more importantly, Steve, Chelsea players. What are players thinking? Players are, at this minute in time in football at this minute, and have been for a long time, the big characters, the deciding characters are the players. It's not necessarily about the owners. It's not necessarily about the managers. It's about players who dictate. Players dictate. So what players, I mean, we've seen in how many, 2-3 instances in recent decades, recent years at Chelsea, where players have actually downed tools and got rid of managers because they want somebody else in the dressing room at Stamford Bridge. I mean, Chelsea it's a big football club. So, these are high profile, big ego players. So what's doing with what's happening to their heads? We don't know. We can't try and second guess that. And going back to what I said about Eddie Howe, about being steady Eddie, and about the fact that he just gets it done. He will have said to his players without any shadow of a doubt, don't even think about Chelsea. Let's not think about Chelsea. Let's not worry about Chelsea. Thomas Tuchel, I heard him yesterday saying that he rates him very highly. And Thomas Tuchel has come on and done a fantastic job at Chelsea. But what's Thomas Tuchel thinking to himself? Nobody knows what's thinking to himself. You know, and then you think about the whole Chelsea scenario about is the Premier League and are Newcastle United even in the same frame of mind now that they were in from 2002, 2003, whenever it was that Abramovich arrived. Because once Abramovich arrived, if at that minute in time the oligarchs had been nipped in the bud, if the oligarchy of Roman Abramovich and his billions had been nipped in the bud by whoever, then maybe Newcastle United, certainly Manchester United, Liverpool and the likes, we probably would have done at some stage, but it probably wouldn't have hastened as quickly as it was at the time. It just started everybody. And going back to the most famous phrase of all that I've said and come up with about 1 million times, Sir John Hall and Mike Ashley, the deal that was done was all about one thing. Sir John famously saying, it's not about millions anymore, it's about billions. And Freddie and Sir John had to stand to one side and let a billionaire called Mike Ashley take over. But the reason for all that was that there was a billionaire in the first place at Chelsea by Roman Abramovich. If that hadn't happened in 2003, where would the world of football have been? Who knows?
This is an interesting question from Colour Codes, taking us in a different direction. He says, Steve, Mick, the anti-Saudi Newcastle rhetoric seems to have died down in the media. Is the takeover old news now, and have people accepted it?
I don't know whether people have accepted it. I think you just have to be realistic, and I think people have looked at it. They've looked at what's happening. They clearly don't see anything that looks too untoward. Yes, the PR has been very good. Yes, the communications have been very good. As a football club, they've been out to Saudi Arabia. That's gone well. There's been no great discomfort by the part of the football club itself, by the ownership themselves. Everything outwardly seems swimmingly, absolutely swimmingly at this moment in time. But I'll go back to what I said about 20 minutes ago. A month ago, Chelsea, their supporters, they're the football clubs, and they're their owners, thought it was going swimmingly as well there. Now, something that's happened of a completely non-footballing nature initially has changed the world of football vis-a-vis Roman Abramovich. So you certainly don't know what's round the corner. None of us know what's round the corner. But at this minute in time, it's happy chappies at St James's Park. There's no problem. There's nothing untoward as far as we know. There's nothing devious. There's nothing wrong about the situation. Yes, some people might quite like and might be unhappy at some things that are happening amongst this, that, and the other in the Middle East. But at this minute in time, it's not a problem. It's not a problem.
There'll always be somebody out there with an agenda. There'll always be somebody out there who brings it up. It's only a few weeks ago since the press conference where Eddie Howe was asked about it. So, and obviously the situation that's happening at Chelsea, I'm sure it'll get mentioned again. The battle between Newcastle and Chelsea and the owners, the owners and directors test will get brought up when, the club eventually gets sold. So, it will happen, but we move on. We can't do anything about it. We're football supporters. Chelsea fans can't do anything about the situation they find their club in at the moment. So, it is interesting. Regarding the revolution, says John, I think we're ahead of schedule. Imagine saying that 2 months ago. He says, am I right? We're one of the form teams now with a potentially great transfer window to look forward to. Yeah, Mick's just covered that. I mean, ultimately next season is something to look forward to, because I would say another 2 wins potentially. We might have enough points now, but another 2 wins, I think, will secure our Premier League safety, and we can look ahead to a really interesting transfer window. Yeah, and it's. I think
what I would say, Steve, because let's be honest about this. Even during the bleak days of Mike Ashley and different managers, different players, whatever, at Newcastle United, We've been struggling for a while, Steve. We've been struggling for a while. We've managed to dodge the bullet a good few times. Yes, we've had 2 relegations, and yes, we've managed to bounce back straight away. So we don't look like the sort of football club outwardly that looks into the turmoil that Leeds United have been in the past and could well go back into it now. Nottingham Forest, who've been there in 20 years. Derby County, big football club, who are in all sorts of plight at the baseball at Pride Park. So let's just not forget that we've struggled in the past, and also on top of that, we've sort of somehow via Rafa and via one or two. I mean, even if you go back into the days of Sir Bobby, we had middle.
Oh, we've lost
middle
Mick.
ground.
His internet connection is. I just lost you there, Mick. Sorry. Go for it, Mick. Go on.
Okay. So I'm just saying that not only have we been in a situation in the past where we've been bottom 3 and right in under the wire of the bottom 3, we've also been relegated twice. Now we've also, even under the likes of Sir Bobby, etc., have finished 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So even as it stands this season, we could again finish 10, 11, 12, whatever. Now, going back to the point that was made about, are we ahead of process? Are we ahead of the game? Now, if we think the game is a proper game, if we think the game is top 6, if we think the game is Champions League, if we think the game is European football, then that's a very, very different argument. Yes, we've comfortably, as it stands, escaped relegation. Yes, we look as if we could even comfortably finish mid-table, but plenty of teams and plenty of managers with Newcastle United have finished middle table for the last 20 years, Steve. It's about breaking into that. And that will take more. That will take more than all the work that Eddie Howe and his staff are doing at this minute in time. It will do it'll need to do an awful lot more than the players who are doing fantastically well at this minute in time, which is why, as I say, we need to know, and it'll be fascinating to see what happens in the summer, what happens in terms of the long plan. Do we start kicking in? Do we start thinking, as of next season, we genuinely try and hit top 6? Because if you're going to hit top 6, you have got to be considerably better than we are at this minute in time. We've done great. We've been a band of brothers who've done very, very well. We had this band of brothers in 2012, 2013 with Kabai, Debussy, Sissoko, Cisse, Demba Ba. Good players, all came together, all worked together. I've talked about it. We got 5th. We managed to get 5th. But within a year, we were plummeting again. We weren't staying consistently. That's why Alan Pardew, in the end, had to jump his ship, and probably at this minute in time has probably not been given the sort of satisfaction and the sort of plaudits that he should have had. But if Eddie Howe and if this new ownership want to seriously do it and seriously do it consistently, top 6 level, we're in a different world, Steve. We're in a different world. We're talking about multi millions.
Yeah, we are. Big shout out to our sponsor, Spider VPN, for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN. They come up at the top of the Google search list. Thanks also to skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy, contract free, and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors, 01913897245, and to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks to Arcot Interiors, based at the bottom of Heaton Road, for all your kitchen necessities. They are the boys to trust too. Google them. They come up at the top of the Google search list. And thanks to qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables and balls in Newcastle, and the guys who do our website. Thanks also to Clee-Kai. Meet the new Game Over screen. Drop into a Clee-Run device near you. Available on Apple Store, Google Play, and at cleerun.game. Thanks to Jab Signature and thanks to Media Arts for our video work. If you want to subscribe to the channel, then hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner and you will get a free car sticker, courtesy of qtechshop.co.uk. Simply go to the website, nufcmatters.com, to claim your free car sticker if you are a subscriber. But yes, hit the Newcastle Legends logo in the bottom right-hand corner. Also, hit the thumb up under the video to like it. And that does us a big favour. Click share to your social media and drop into the comments to speak to like-minded Newcastle fans and to leave a comment for me and Mick. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify and other podcast providers. Usually goes up 24 hours after the show. You can also join NUFC Matters Cult, where you'll get a scarf and a pen and a cup and a membership card. Just simply go to the website or scan your phone over the QR code and it takes you straight to the membership enrolment page. We also support the food bank on here, nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. And with no home games for a couple of weeks, it is vital that they still raise funds. So please go to the food bank's website there, nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk, and drop some money into the virtual bucket. We're also raising money with this T-shirt on my Twitter page, @SteveWraith. It's pinned at the top. Just place your bid underneath the picture of the T-shirt to enter into an open auction. We will announce the winner next Friday. And we've got the Alan Shearer event coming up on the horizon next month. If you want to enter the raffle, which will be drawn on Friday night on the Three Amigos show, tickets for this are £5, nufcmatters.com, 99 tickets available, and it's a prize worth £520. It's a pair of tickets for that event. We are going to do this for the next couple of weeks. We've already had one lucky winner last night. Could you be the next one to join them on the NUFC Matters table? So get yourself into the open raffle, nufcmatters.com, £5 a ticket, and good luck. We will announce the winner on the Three Amigos on Friday. And we are doing this special show for the Ukraine as well. £10 a ticket, newcastlelegends.com at Marlborough Social Club. Gibbo, Supermac and Young Holly will be joining myself on 9th of April at 12 o'clock in the Marlborough Social Club in Newcastle, newcastlelegends.com for those tickets. Okay, back to the chat. Graham says, the new regime have done so much for our club that they've given us hope. We're not a laughingstock in the Premier League anymore. We've got owners that don't look to aggravate. We are united again. And that's a big, big thing, Graham. Yeah, we are united again. The confidence is sky high, Colin. He says it'll be very interesting to see how we would react in the next game after a defeat. Yeah, that's quite a good point to make by Colin, isn't it, Mick? Because it's all very well when things are going along swimmingly. But when we do eventually lose, and it will happen at some point, it's how you bounce back, isn't it?
And I was just about to say that. I mean, you've used the phrase there, Steve. Everybody loses sooner rather than later. You know, some go longer than others, some more often than others. But there is absolutely no doubt at some point, and it could well happen tomorrow afternoon, Newcastle will lose a game of football. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But as you say, it's all about how you pick yourself up and dust yourself down. And I think we've seen, going back to what I've just said about Eddie Howe and the fact that he doesn't get too up and he doesn't get too down. He just stays just where it's needed. And that's what'll happen. That's what'll happen. It doesn't matter if they win 3-0, lose 3-0, or draw ones each against Stamford Bridge. Eddie Howe will start again on Monday, exactly the same, starting again for Everton next Thursday. And it's the only way you can do it. You know, he's been in football long enough. You know, I was thinking about, you know, all those managers over the years that I've been involved in. They're all decent people, Steve. You know, we talked about Pardew and how, you know, he had the results and he had the money, but he just didn't have the charm. You know, the only two I think were probably Ruud Gullit and Joe Kinnear, who just really didn't get it. They just didn't get it. They didn't really care an awful lot about Newcastle United. But you go through, you know, any one of them, the you know, that the high profile Dalglishers, the Sounesses, you know, those three requirements, they didn't really get. They got patchy results. They didn't get an awful lot of charm. You know, that neither of them were really overly liked by the fans. You know, they had money. Yes, they had money. Michael Owen in from Souness. Dalglish had plenty of players. The likes of Shea bought some good players, Nobby Solano, etc. But then you think about more recent ones under Mike Ashley's regime. You know, I mean, you know, Steve McLaren was a decent guy. These are decent people. They're proper football people. I used to watch them and see them and talk to them and interview them eyeball by eyeball. And I'd see the lads, you know, for a pint, and they'd be getting all sorts of stick. But, you know, you watch them and they're desperately, desperately trying. Because they're pride. They've got self-pride. They've got that, you know, they really want to not only help Newcastle United, but help themselves as well. So, you know, Eddie Howe, first and foremost, like any other footballer, wants to do the best he can for himself, for his family, for his players, for his supporters, and for his football club. So, you know, it doesn't matter if they win again. They will win again. Sorry, lose again. They will lose again. But then they'll start again. They'll start again. But whether Eddie Howe's around in 2 years, is he around in 3 years, is he around in 5 years? We don't know. We really don't know, because we just don't know what's happening in football. We don't know what owners have got in mind. We don't know what players are going to start doing. So, you know, it is a fascinating situation we have with Newcastle. Going back to the owners, they've done brilliant. They've done absolutely brilliant, because they've come out and they've been more communicative. Yes, they've come out and they've shown their profile, and they've worn their scarves. They've done this, they've done that. But most importantly of all, they're doing it properly. We're still waiting for Dan Ashworth. We're still waiting for a chief executive. Nothing's knee-jerk about it. We thought at first maybe Eddie Howe was going to be knee-jerk, because whether we all like it or not, Unai Emery was essentially the number one guy wanted. Unai Emery didn't end up coming to Newcastle United. Next thing you know, Eddie Howe has arrived. Everybody a little bit questionable about. He's not particularly high profile. He was at Bournemouth. You know, Emery on the other side of things had been at Arsenal. He's been in Spain. He's high profile. So you've gone from one extreme to the other. And he struggled at first, Eddie Howe. You know, struggled from results purposes. What he might have been doing in the training ground is clearly more than that. But now he's kicked it in. Now we're 9 games unbeaten, and suddenly Unai Emery is forgotten. Anybody else who may have been a contender as Newcastle manager has been forgotten, because the manager of the month and the manager doing better than any other football club in the Premier League at this minute in town is a fella called Eddie Howe. So fair play to him.
Yep, our Borough correspondent, Fly Me to the Moon, he says, what do you make of the Chelsea situation? How does it affect the FA Cup quarter-final at Borough next week? If it's at Borough, mate, you'll be fine. If it was away from home, you might be struggling if you hadn't bought your tickets. Watch this space with anybody who's got to go and play at Chelsea is the answer. This is uncharted territory for the Premier League and for everybody else. And like I said, and the lads said on the Three Amigos last night, there are so many things which are going to crop up, and you know, the minor things are the things which a football club does. To run a football club day to day will be affected by this. People are losing their jobs already, and
I mean, the most amazing one, it's quite a small. Well, it's not a small scenario. It's a big issue, but it almost sort of brings it down to earth. I'm presuming 100% this is right, but the shirt sponsorships prior to the Norwich game in midweek pulled the plugs off Chelsea. Mm-hmm. Somebody at Chelsea Football Club at Norwich had to walk into town and find from Sports Direct 25 blue Chelsea shirts, just certain logoed up with Premier League logo, and blue Chelsea shirts with Chelsea badge, no sponsorship badge, had to wear kit to wear the players to complete the club, to complete the fixture against Norwich that evening. Amazing. A multi-million-pound football club only 3 weeks ago are now scratching around on a Thursday night at Sports Direct in Norwich to find shirts for players to wear that evening in a Premier League fixture. Unbelievable.
When the new owners came in, people were saying they don't know what they're doing. You know, they're out of their depth. They're not football people. But Craig Alrington says whoever negotiated the £15 million fee for Matt Targett has done an amazing deal, because the way he's playing, he's added an extra 10 million onto his price tag every game. I mean, Matt Targett is a bit of an unsung hero in all of this, isn't he? He's come in. He's a 7 out of 10, 8 out of 10 in every game. Does his business. I have said before the end of the season, I'm going to put him on his first goal scorer at the bookies every day, because he's going to score an absolute raker at some point. But yeah, what a good bit of business that is. Potentially we could buy him at the end of the season for that price.
Yeah, I mean, it went so late and it went almost unnoticed. But I can remember even prior to Aston Villa at Southampton. I mean, I think he played close to 100 games. I mean, he's a good player. He's been a good player for a long time. I mean, the most amazing thing was, I mean, obviously it was contrived by the fact that Aston Villa had got themselves a replacement issue at left back. So he was available. But at the time, I couldn't believe it. I thought, somebody said, Matt Targett's gone. I thought, he's a good player. I mean, I've been a Paul Dummett fan for years and years. But Dummy has got injury problems. He's been in and out of the side. We haven't had a real established left fullback for a long time now. And I couldn't believe it the night that suddenly it was announced that, they've got Matt Targett on loan until the end of the season. I remember saying to somebody, he's a proper player, absolutely proper player. Because, and I mentioned as well, he's a bit like Paul Dummett in so much as he's steady Eddie. He'll put his foot down. He can play a ball. He can knock a ball. He's probably a bit more advantageous and gets forward a bit more than Paul Dummett. But he's a good player. And at this minute in time, there's probably an argument that says we might find it more difficult to keep him rather than get hold of him, because I think people will look at him. I think Aston Villa might even look at him. I don't know. Was there a deal, whispered by Newcastle? It often happens in those sort of situations. Let's do the loan deal until the summer. As long as we like it and you like it, let's make it established. Then again, Steve, you can argue again if we kick players into the high grass in the summer. In terms of improving the squad, is Matt Targett then suddenly required to surplus as well? We just don't know. But at this minute in time, he's doing fantastically well. And this back four, which once upon a time was like a schoolgirl playgroup, is all of a sudden, it's not conceding goals. It's zeros and ones all about the place. So. Yeah, Matt, Targett, Byrne, Emil Kraft has come on and been a player again all of a sudden because, again, Trippier has sort of helped him in his need to sort of improve his facilities. And it's only really Fabian Schär that is, and again, you could argue that he has improved, but he's the only really steady Eddie from the previous incumbents of 2 months ago.
Yeah, Dan Byrne is a player who's come in and hit the ground running. Blue Moon Boy says, Mick, what's your thoughts on Big Dan Byrne? Was he this good at Brighton, or has he stepped up a notch because he's at the tune? And it's funny, I had a conversation with somebody this morning about this. That did you know who Dan Byrne was? Well, everybody was talking about Lewis Dunk. Big Dan Byrne wasn't really getting a mention, was he?
Well, never mind. I mean, not just Lewis Dunk, Steve. I mean, think about Botman. Think about Diego Carlos. Think about these huge names that were flying around all over Europe. And the ones we've nicked is a kid from a Geordie who's been here and there a bit and has not exactly set the world alight. Has come in quite late on, and I'll hold my hand up and say that I thought a bit like you've mentioned there as in your thoughts about Targett. 7 and 10, 6, 7 out of 10, Dan Byrne, but he's been an absolute revelation. And I think there are times, when if you have a relationship with a football club because you're local, sometimes it works against you. Sometimes you get too emotional. Sometimes you get too close to the issue. You've got family there. You've got friends there. You can get distracted. I talked about not giving him. I wouldn't have given him the captaincy last week, and quite rightly, Eddie Howe said, no, we don't need it. It is too much of a distraction. But he's worked through that distraction very, very well. The one thing I would slightly say is what at this minute in time Dan Burn is needed, and what Newcastle have been needed defensively, is proper blockers, proper defenders, proper kickers, proper screamers, proper ballers, proper owners, proper leaders. You know, he fits that bill perfectly. If we get to the next level, if we start playing games against Chelsea, as we do tomorrow, and then the likes of Tottenham and the likes of Liverpool, when you're playing then against strikers who are a different quality altogether, then you find the likes of Dan Burn finding it a little bit more difficult. I'm not being critical. I'm not being in any way having a knock at Dan Burn, but it's just the nature of football. And particularly defenders. If you've got better centre forwards up against you, it's a harder job to do. So Dan Burn, for these 9 games or whatever it is, he's not been involved in all 9, obviously, but it's essentially been a firefighting situation, and he's done very well fighting the fire, along with Cher, along with Target, along with Kraft. But once we get above that, once we get to the level where we start being players, once we start getting to being ball players, and I know he can play the ball, but he's a different. There's a different need then for us to be. I don't want to say it, but Van Dijk. You know, these are the sorts of players who play centre backs at the highest level. So let's just stick with Dan Burn where he is at this minute in time. He's doing fantastically well. He's helping us prevent goals. He's helping us win games, but that will change. Everything will change sooner or later once we're back in the Premier League, and once we see how the ownership and the rest of the football club decide to change their complexion next season.
Yeah, Stephen Robinson says special mention about Dubravka. He seems to be finding form. Yeah. He's got a great defence in front of him, Stephen, at the moment, and it makes it a lot easier. But yeah, I think everybody's comfortable back there. Sean Elliott says, realistically, what position do you see us ending on, Mick? He says, honestly, I feel we're going to land around 10th. He says, yes, I know we've got hard games, but I feel some more big results are coming. I mean, that's the enthusiasm and, you know, the excitement amongst the fan base, isn't it?
I have to say, without wanting to be too cynical, Steve, but I do tend to get the cynical head on every now and then. I think if you think about the Premier League, in all honesty, for a long time now, the bottom 3 have tended in the main to be 3 or 4 or 5, maybe 5 or 6, but in the main, it's pretty much known from about January, February onwards. At the top end, again, you've really only been talking about 2-3 clubs for the last 4 or 5, 6 years. So what you've got then is you've got 4 or 5 at the bottom. You've got 3 or 4 at the bottom. So you've got something like 10 teams, 10 clubs in that Premier League for the last 10 years, maybe even last 20 years, who have been freewheeling. They've been freewheeling from about January onwards. I remember being at Wembley for the Tottenham game and doing a podcast there, and somebody said, you know, how do we think Rafa will do in the final stages of the season? And I said, I'll tell you something about Rafa Benitez, and Eddie Howe will be exactly the same as Rafa Benitez. He'll keep them going. He'll keep them pushing. He'll keep them going. And that's why, you know, Rafa invariably ended up somewhere around 10, 11, whatever, because he kept his team going. Eddie Howe has kept his team going. Now, there are teams, whether you like it or not, there are football clubs and there are teams that will be opposing in the next 2 months who will literally be on the beach. They'll be on the beach. They're not bothered. They're not going to finish anywhere better somewhere between about 14th and about 8th or somewhere like that. There'll be 6 or 7 clubs who just go and freewheel. So if you do it properly, look at Steve Bruce at the end of last season. Absolutely incredible run. But I'm sorry, an awful lot of that was down to, the Fulham was a case in point. Fulham were away. Fulham were gone. You know, they were in Lanzarote. They were in Marbella. They were wherever. Teams have been doing it the week before. Teams have been doing it the month before. They do it all over the place. There's no hunger there anymore. Now, invariably, last season, Steve Bruce was hungered because he wanted to survive. Rafa, because of his principles, hungered, would keep it going. Eddie Howe will keep Newcastle going. So in a roundabout way, to answer the question, I think we'll keep going, and I think a good few will stop, and they have stopped, one or two even already. So there is absolutely no reason why we cannot get somewhere comfortably around mid-table 10. Maybe one or two down, more than likely, potentially one or two up. But we will certainly be at this minute in time, unless it falls apart, and I can't see Eddie Howe allowing it to fall apart, then we'll finish mid-table.
Okay, good stuff, and yeah, I would agree. I think Eddie Howe is he's oozes professionalism, and I think he won't let them rest on their laurels. Put it that way. But
you see, the other thing as well, Steve, and Steve Bruce was very much part of this at the tail end of last season, and most managers are exactly the same because they're trying to keep themselves in a job. I mean, let's be honest about it. It's going back to it's a results-driven business. And I tell you what, it doesn't matter who your ownership is, but particularly if your ownership are the sort of ownership that Newcastle have, who are proper people, they are not going to settle to second best. They are not going to settle to second best. So in the same way that when Kieran Trippier gives Emil Kraft a kick up the backside, so too, between now and the 11 games at the end of the season, Eddie Howe is thinking to himself, I need to keep going because I need to stay in a job. I need to stay my quality. I keep it at a level where the ownership aren't thinking to themselves, hang on a minute, is he the right guy? Is he the wrong guy? At this minute in time, they've got it spot on. He's got it spot on. But you have to keep that level of consistency. You have to keep picking up results. It's the results-driven business.
Yeah, okay. So Newcastle play Chelsea away tomorrow. It is a 2:00 kickoff. It is live on Sky Sports. 3,000 tickets for the away end were sold. So it will be a noisy Stamford Bridge once again. And rail seats have now been installed in both the shed end and the upper and lower. NUFC.com reported on this. They said they're not 100% sure how much of the away sections have been altered, but at least part of it is now designated as safe standing. Not a happy hunting ground, it has to be said. Stamford Bridge for Newcastle.
Now there's an understatement.
Got to go back to those wonderful Papa Cisse goals when we won 2-0 in May 2012. We also had a nice game down there in the FA Cup, if I remember rightly. But
yeah, we did.
Newcastle, of course, without Callum Wilson and Kieran Trippier. Doesn't look like ASM has travelled, as we mentioned last night on the show. Not sure what is going on with him. Joe Linton, I don't think will be risked either. Obviously, groins are awkward at the best of times. From his perspective, I think he will be rested for the next game, but we will wait and see. We've got an able replacement in Bruno, as we know already. There was a doubt over Fabian Schär, who, again, there was potential of a groin strain there, but he is expected to be fit to play. Reece James is out for Chelsea. Christian Pulisic and Azpilicueta are rated as doubtful starters. As we've already touched on the show as well, Chelsea have a lot going on behind the scenes, which could cause a little bit of disruption amongst the dressing room. But let's not beat around the bush here. We're playing one of the best teams in the world at the moment. And Newcastle's run of 9 games unbeaten is definitely going to be tested tomorrow. Referee is always something we look at because they do play a big part in the games. And David Coote has his 3rd appointment for Newcastle this season. The 2-0 defeat, the 2-0 loss at Aston Villa, and the 1-1 draw at Brighton being the other 2 games that he's looked after us in. And John Brooks is on VAR. So, Mick, what are you expecting tomorrow?
Really tough, really tough. We joked about it there about the long run of non-wins at Stamford Bridge. I just remember going there year after year after year after year. It's tight, it's compact. Obviously, they're a very, very good side. They've got big players. They've got a very good manager in Tuchel. It's tough, whichever way you look at it, however you dress it up, whichever tactics you try and come up with. It's going to be very, very difficult. But we're confident. Yes, as I say, 9 games unbeaten. You just keep going. There's the old frame or the famous phrase. I don't know if it's a clear hit. I don't know if it's something that you think to yourself, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Have a go at it. I can't see Eddie Howe sort of working by that sort of premise. I think he'll try and set his stall out. I think he'll try and negate Chelsea. But I think, going back to what I said about half an hour ago, I think the key to the whole scenario, the key to the whole situation is what sort of head Chelsea are in, what sort of head Chelsea's players are in. Because if they're in a frame of mind where they're thinking to themselves, what are we doing? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? Is the football club doing this? Is the football club doing that? What's happening with finance? What's happening with money? Are we leaving in the summer? Are we staying in the summer? Is the manager coming? Is the manager going? If their heads are in bits, then that will help Newcastle. But even then, they're a very good side, because they could go the other way. They could, as a player, as a squad, say to themselves, with a manager saying, we're going to prove a point here. We're going to show people that we are Chelsea Football Club. And regardless of what's going on away from the footballing side of things, we're going to give somebody a real hiding. And honestly, it's a tough game. So I really don't know. I don't think we can second guess it, because we just don't know. If you ask me about Newcastle, I think I know what Newcastle are going to do. I think they're going to be confident. I think they're going to attempt to try and keep Chelsea tight. But it's just what Chelsea do. It's what Chelsea do, and we just don't know what Chelsea are going to do. So I think the bottom line is you'll take a point without a doubt. In the same way that West Ham United not so long ago in London, you would happily take a draw, keep it on from 9 unbeaten to 10 unbeaten. But if the winning run is going to go, if the unbeaten run is going to go, then it'll start again at Everton, at Goodison on Thursday. But let's just give it a go. Give it a go at Stamford Bridge. Let's see what happens. I'll take a draw, but I'm not hopeful. Let's put it that way.
All right, well, that's fair enough. Without Joe Linton breaking up play, it's going to be a deeper line, says Ryan. I agree, mate. Look, 2 good trips for me this week. I'm looking forward to going to Stamford Bridge. I love going down to London. It's always a good trip down there, just as long as the trains are on time, of course. And Everton, of course, Thursday. Back in the car with Holly and her dad. So
good for you.
Watch out, YouTube. There'll be a bit of singing going on. God knows what we'll be singing to. God knows what CD Dave's bought, but it'll be a laugh, I'm sure. All right, great stuff. Thanks to everybody.
Can I just say something very quickly, Steve? I'd just like to not apologise, because I'm never going to apologise. But I would just like to say to people, this aphasia business, since the stroke I had in November, is something that is an ongoing issue. If anybody out there has had a stroke or knows anybody who has a stroke and they are struggling with aphasia, believe me, the thing to do is keep getting talk. Keep talk. But you will get you will get words the right way around. You will get things occasionally wrong. You'll get them mumbled up. I'm doing it regularly. I didn't do it great this morning. Some mornings are better than others. And I thank you. I thank you for your concern, and I thank you for just waiting and resting for me. But aphasia, it's something there for people to live with. And if you've got anybody, help them, because it takes time. And you don't beat it. You just get it better. Some are better than others. But thank you very much for your time this morning. But please bear in mind anybody who's had a stroke or is suffering with a stroke.
Top man, Mick, and we'll leave Geordie Tune for life with the final words. You're doing brilliant, Mick. So
thank you very much.
See you next week, mate. Take care.
See you later, pal. Have a good time.
Thanks, mate.